Hello and welcome to the I Am Evolution podcast. Spirit guide and soul sage Raina shares the knowledge of the universe to awaken and raise consciousness within. All of us have forgotten who we are and why we are here. But if we open our minds to new knowledge, we can use duality to achieve different perspectives to regain our unity. When we expand our awareness within, our possibilities become limitless. Let's begin to remember who we truly are and fulfill our mission and purpose to become conscious. And now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Am Evolution podcast. I'm your host, Raina, and today is Monday, March 25th, 2024. As always, we're coming live from the Sirius Star System studios right here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I hope all is well with everybody. So we're going to get right into today's show, but before we do, as always, guys, if you're just joining us or you're new to the show, welcome. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, and D Live, and all the replays will be in the I Am Evolution podcast events and on our I Am Evolution podcast Facebook page. So if you guys haven't subscribed, please go over there and subscribe, and let's get into today's show, because today's show is You're Too Sensitive. And how many times have we heard that? I know my life, I've heard that so many times. Raina, you're too sensitive. I've heard that as an empath. I've heard that as a woman. It seems like it's for most of my life, or I should say for most of my young life, I heard that I was way too sensitive. And many people who are empathic, who are on this spiritual or conscious journey, and who are really opening up their consciousness to greater vibration, all of a sudden become very sensitive to all these different things that are going on and life and energies and everything. And we have a hard time with it, don't we? Or at least I used to have a hard time with it. But most sensitive people do have a hard time with it. And I really like to retouch on this topic from time to time because, one, I know so many of you guys struggle with this, and two, it's like there's always new people that are, growing up and struggling with this topic and struggling with this themselves. And it's just, I find that, even though you've done shows on this, and even though you've had talks on this, it's always good to revisit these things because of that idea. And so when we look at being a sensitive, a lot of times many people view it as a very toxic trait. They view it as very chaotic. Because they struggle with it. They have a hard time connecting with people, relationships, friendships, going out in public. I know for many years of my life, I had such a hard time with going out to places such as, just even shopping at Publix, Target, anywhere, Whole Foods, anywhere that I wanted to go out. I had a hard time because when I was younger, I did not know how to control my sensitivity. And one of the first things that I'm going to tell you, and we'll get into this probably on sessions and stuff, but because I'm going to do as much as I can, and then this is going to be like a two-part thing where I do most of today on, on the live show, and then I'm going to finish up on sessions. But I want to tell you guys, being a sensitive is a gift. It is a huge gift because it allows us to grow and see past things that people that aren't sensitive can't feel and see. Most of this world, the reason why a lot of people and a lot of a lot of sensitive people, a lot of empaths have a hard time with this world is because as you start to evolve, as you start to grow, you start to realize that this world is full of lies and a lot of things that we have been taught to believe, that we believe ourselves, that traditions and stuff are not true. There's a lot of falsehoods in this time. And as we start to awaken, as we start to evolve, as we start to grow consciously and our vibration spreads out and we start to feel more, what happens is our energy of our body starts to say, okay, well, I'm raising my vibration, I'm changing it, I'm trying to understand this, I'm accepting, I'm trying to find out truth, but yet I'm constantly running into people that are fighting and toxic and angry. And a lot of times, sorry, I got a hair on my nose, but a lot of times this brings us back to this a vicious cycle, because when we start to feel the lies and the stress and the toxicity, sometimes even as sensitives, we become that. I know there's so many people that I see and that I have seen throughout my years that have struggled with this constant toxic loop of where they're like, yes, I really want to grow, I really want to do these things, but at the same time, it's hard for me to get out there. And when I do get out there, I'm very bothered by people, I'm very bothered by energies. It becomes overwhelming. Then I become that idea, and then I start becoming aggravated, and it's like this vicious cycle. And I get that, because there's even still times here and there, once in a while, I'll get caught in that cycle, because you know what? That's just the way life is. We have to start learning to accept who we are and the things about us that make us us. You know, you're growing up in my generation. I mean, generations now have it so much easier, but growing up in my generation, being empathic really wasn't talked about. If you were a woman, you were very emotional. And especially if you look at our history, there is women's hysteria and everything. And I'm not going to get into men versus women in that. But there is a pattern. And there's a lot of times that I was dismissed as a person because people thought, oh, I was just this over-emotional, overreacting woman. And for a while, I took on this trait because I said, well, maybe it's my hormones. Maybe it is. Maybe they're right. Why can't I control this? Why is this hindering my life? Why am I so over emotional? And Laura used to say, it's a gift. Use it. And I'd be like, it's a gift. Use it. What do you mean it's a gift? How can I live in a world that I feel everything, that I take on everything, that's I feel the sadness in people. I feel their pain and suffering. I feel, their ups and downs, and still to this day. And over the time, I've learned to use this to my benefit to help people. But a lot of times, because we're not given the owner's manual, because we're not given any instructions or guidance on really how to evolve through this, we look at it as something kind of a burden. And this is one of the lies and falsehoods that we buy into. So not only is the world that we see full of lies and illusions and obstacles that we have to kind of navigate ourselves out of, but if you've heard my other shows, I always compare our lives and the lessons that were used to like a Rubik's Cube. If you ever know what a Rubik's Cube is, if you don't, go look it up. They're fun toys. I love them. But they're little puzzles, and they have one white side, a red side, a blue side, an orange side, or a green side. And you got to mix it up, and then you got to figure out the pattern on how to put it back together. And there's a trick to that, because I see people do it. They turn it a few times, and they get all the colors back to it. So there's a pattern to it. But anyways, your life is like that Rubik's Cube. And as you come here, you have to learn to navigate each twist and turn, each gift you have, each experience which you have, and everything that you're reading as data, as information, so that you can learn to evolve and grow. And our belief systems teach us differently, because a lot of times, truth be told, the things that we're taught are things that people don't understand themselves, and oftentimes are misinformation. And this is something that if you're a sensitive, you have to start learning to evolve through. You have to start looking at yourself and saying, well, what is it that I believe that I could be creating, that I could be blocking and creating more disharmony in my empathy, in my sensitivity, in these things that aiding when I attach myself to these ideas of people? Because when you look at it and you go out, most people that are empathic and sensitive are people that go out and sympathize with people that are broken or need fixing or are in pain and suffering. And they attract that because that is something that they're conditioned to. That is something that they understand. And they sympathize with them. So being having empathy and having sympathy are two different things. When you sympathize with someone, that means you connect on an emotional basis and saying, wow, that person's really in pain. And I understand that because I suffer with that. And so I connect with that person. And that can be a very toxic trait. Empathy, which is something that most sensitives, because they'll say, well, I'm empathic, but they don't really understand what that means. So most empathics connect in that sympathetic way. The empathetic way is to be able to say, okay, well, I see that person in pain, and yes, I understand that pain because I've went through that, but I'm going to allow this experience to teach both this person and myself so that I can learn to evolve into a conscious being so that I can use my sensitivity as a gift instead of getting wrapped up into this. And this is something that we really have to focus on. As you guys know, there's no such thing as good or bad or right or wrong, negative or positive. And so throw this idea that there's this whole negative concept away from it, because that is a misunderstanding. We know, if you've been listening to this show and you've really been working on this and evolving, you know that negativity, there's no such thing because it means that it's bad and it's toxic. No, and it has nothing to do with that. The negative force of life is polarity. It's the feminine aspect. It's reflective. And wow, what a great thing that is to be, because if you learn to use your empathic sensitivity and you learn to use both masculine and feminine energy in this, then you can start wheeling these ideas and start being able to figure out what you're doing and how you're going to be able to perceive the experiences that you're having. If you're caught up in these lies that, oh, there's negative energy out there and I got to stay away from it, it's toxic because I want to be positive, then you are being a part of those lies and you are being consumed by illusions. And you, instead of trying to play with the Rubik's Cube and put the patterns together, you're just making more of a mess so that you are more confused. And this is why it is so important for people who are sensitive to really rely on that feminine aspect of themselves, to look at themselves and to sit there and analyze themselves constantly. I do it all the time. Even before the show, for the last 2 hours, I sat in my silence and I reflected on who I was and my experiences and things that are going on in my life and things that are happening, because because the other day when I had pool, I had a situation that happened and I became like mad, and so I just shut down. And let me tell you something, when Raina puts out her energy, everyone in the whole room is going to feel it and vibe at that. And I had to pull myself out of that. But the first match, I was like, all right, I was just so upset. I was like, all right, I let myself get too emotionally in there, and I allowed myself to get caught up in that. Because as an empath, as someone sensitive, it's a very, I don't want to say it's a slippery slope, because it is, but it isn't. But you can get caught up so quickly because our emotions are heightened. And that means we have to have more discipline. We have to have more awareness of who we are and when things are going on. So during my first match, I lost, and that was okay, but I had to try to pull myself out of it as I was going through that. I was like, all right, Raina, put on your headphones, listen to music, just focus on the next game, and that's what I did. I just focused on my game. I won the next game, and I just pulled myself out of it instead of evolving myself out of it. It wasn't a bad experience, because there's no such thing as a bad experience. It wasn't negative, because there's no such thing as negative. It was there to teach me into something that now, for the past 2 hours and even last night, I sat with my energy reflecting on that experience with those emotions, being able to read what it is that I have faced. And that's what the life of a sensitive is, right? Here to face challenges. I mean, we're all here to face our challenges, but if you have no discipline, if you have no control, if all you're going to do is follow suit of whatever emotional state you're in. And trust me, I see so many people. One day they're preaching love, or one second they're posting about love and that, and the very next thing they're posting hate and chaos and this, and I'm so tough. You don't mess with. And it's like, because they don't know how to control and they have no discipline of who they are and what they are about. See, emotions aren't real. They're not. But the experience behind them is. And emotions are just a form of conscious energy that we create to teach us lessons, to be able to help us understand something. So if you guys follow my social media, you'll see that I posted today, hey, I posted a quote today, and I said, if one is angry, it is because one is without self-love. If one acts tough, it is because one is afraid. If one is mean, it is because one is insecure. And if one is strong and confident, it is because they come from love and compassion. So that idea is basically saying, well, for people who act in certain ways, it's because they choose and allow themselves to get engulfed by these ideas based on illusions, based on lies, based on belief system, based on fear, etc. And so the empath here is meant to be sensitive enough to evolve that consciousness within themselves and the planet to help raise consciousness here. But unfortunately, we get caught up in it, right? Because as I said before, right, you're too sensitive. Why do you cry all the time? Why are you so angry? Why are you so up and down? You got to stop being like that. I don't know how many people told me that throughout my life. And at one time I was shameful of it. But you know what? I realized that's shallow from people. That our society, because I grew up in Chicago, and Chicago is a very tough town. We're not very, we don't show our emotions a lot. And the way we care is we tease. And the more we tease you, the more we care about you, the more we like you. But as I traveled all over, I realized that this not only is a Chicago thing, but this is everywhere. And even in today's world, even though we're supposed to be opening up more and we're supposed to be more accepting, there has been a lot more shallowness and hatefulness in the idea of shutting people down, because if it doesn't agree with what we're thinking, or if it doesn't agree with what I believe to be the truth, then it's wrong, and you can't say that, you can't do that, and you can't show emotion, because and guys, I'm sorry, but stop this idea that if you show emotion, you're a girl, you're gay, whatever, you're less than a man, whatever. Just stop it. This is such an unevolved way of thinking, and you guys got to get past this, because guys, I feel bad for guys. Guys die early more than women because they hold so much in. Why? Even in medical, like that, we understand that the rough period for men is between 50 and 55, because they hold so much in and they don't know how to, and they eat unhealthy because they think that, oh, I'm a man, I have to eat burgers and potatoes and all this stuff, and I got to drink beer and I got to do that, and they kill themselves. And so these ideas of emotion, these ideas of the shallowness and the closed-minded of society, you must have to separate. I got to a point where I had to choose, and this is something that you're going to have to learn to do. You're going to have to sit here and choose, well, what is more important to me and my growth and my path, or what everyone else thinks of me, calling me too sensitive? Because you know what? My family, I love them to death, but they don't understand anything I do and wonder why I'm goofing off with what I do. And they think that I'm not what I do, like they can't comprehend it. And that's okay. I love them. I know that they love me, but my life is about me, and whether they agree with it or not. And this is something you have to make the choice too. If people don't agree with your emotional sensitivity and your empathy, then you got to start finding out people that do. Because this is going to shift the perspective of what you're seeing. So in my life, one of the things I've always talked about is when I decide in my life that I do a life review all the time, because I look at that from a mental, a logical, and an emotional standpoint. And I sit there and I say, okay, Raina, Here's every 3, 6, and year time I do a life review, and I say, okay, Raina, let's logically look at everything, then emotionally look at everything, and see how my life is going. See the things that I need to keep in my life. See the thing, because if I'm finding out that there's people that are just keep creating my unhappiness because they're not accepting, or they're not growing with me, or they're not on the same path, and they're just getting caught up in the 3D world, then what I do is my sensitivity starts to become chaotic, and it starts to become all over the place. And as strong as I am, I start to lose it, because I feel like I'm juggling everybody else's lives and everybody else's emotions. So I'm going to tell you this. As I don't care if you're a healer or a sensitive or whatever, you are not here to juggle anybody else's life. That is for them to learn how to deal with, and that is for them to learn how to evolve through. If they come to you for advice on something, and you feel that you're qualified to give them advice, then maybe sure. But you are not here to save the world and to save everybody else. And that's one of the biggest faults of the sensitive and an empath, is the fact that everybody feels like they're here to save the world, that they're on this divine mission, that they're put here and their only purpose is to take all the junk and all the drama and garbage from people and humanity and just channel it through them. And that's further from the truth. People, you will go into like a depression, a huge depression, and maybe you're already there if this is the way you think. If you believe, because you think that, and a lot of people that are sensitive and empaths don't understand it themselves. And before I do shows, I go on websites, I read stuff, and I say, okay, what do people think about this? What is their idea? And I see that even people who pose that they understand what certain things are, it's not true. And so if you think that being an empath is meant to be like just a punching bag for everybody, it's not. An empath is meant to channel the vibration, to understand it, so that they can evolve and that they can be like an example for others, but not take on everyone's garbage. And this is something that we have to understand. Multiple ideas between the connection between the mind and the heart is very valuable for the empath, because the mind tells you that, okay, I'm going to look at this logically, and I'm going to think, and I'm going to create, and I'm going to have awareness of everything that's going on around my world. But at the same time, my heart is going to channel that and say, okay, well, I see this, but what does it mean? And so I'm going to ask you another question. How many of you take the time to really figure out what your experiences mean? And maybe you guys don't. Maybe that's the problem. If you're struggling as an empath, maybe you're not taking the time out to figure out what you're channeling and what it means. And maybe because you don't know how to figure out what it means, and that's okay. We all got to start someplace. When I started getting my medical degrees, my Oriental medicine degrees, I didn't know any Chinese herbs or how to read people's tongues or pulses or anything like that. But you start with day one, you try to figure it out, and you go over it. And still to this day, even the last couple of days, I'm going through, over my job as an ancient soul and as a teacher, and that I reevaluate so many different situations in my life over and over and over at different times, depending on if information needs to come up so I can understand it more. And I use my empathy, I use that sensitivity to analyze the data, as we say, and that so that I am able to focus and say, okay, well, this is something that I know, this is something that I understand now, and now I understand more because I look at it in a different way. Being an emotional sensitive or an empath has nothing to do with your social settings, feeling happy all the time, being insecure, sad, anger, joy. It has nothing to do with this. The only thing that you're creating, if you're one of these empaths that seems to destroy you, It is because your mind has accepted that you are the victim in this area, and that the gift is actually a burden. And because you've never taken the time to try to understand it and focus on it and evolve through it, you let it run rampant on you. And that's with anything. And it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, like, you guys have to understand that it doesn't matter if you play sports, or if you're going to be a doctor, if you're going to be an athlete, or whatever it is, if you're going to be a dentist, if you're going to be an artist. You have to train. You have to put in the work. You have to be dedicated. You have to do these things. If you expect yourself to go to work every day and just go home and let life beat on you, come home, cry, go back to bed, and repeat that pattern without doing any of the work, then this is going to be your life every single day. You have to learn to balance everything and learn to work with everything. When you get to a point, because once you get to a point of being like where you're strong enough to being like, okay, well, I understand what I'm seeing, I understand what I'm feeling, and I'm analyzing this. You can operate on a normal basis and still feel everybody's and understand what everybody's going through, and still live a very healthy, happy life. Every day I go to work, or every day I go out, I'm dancing, I'm singing, I'm goofing around, I'm having a good time. And if I'm at the pool hall and there's like a tournament going on and I'm feeling everyone's emotions, some people are happy, some people are frustrated, some people are really angry that they're losing, etc. So whatever the emotion, I can feel everybody's emotions and still be dancing and happy and doing whatever, because I understand that what I choose to take in is that, hey, well, look, I'm doing something right now, and the only energy that I want to be in is my own. And because I've trained myself to channel my energy and block out whatever I need to, but still at the same time have kind of feelers out, because, I still care about people. And there's always times where I'll play somebody and I've been feeling them that they're, upset or something's going on and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, we start, I make a comment to open up the dialogue and pull that information out so that they can, kind of talk about it and vent it out just for a second and stuff, so that they can, enjoy what they're meant to do. And these are the tricks that we start to learn. And so I want you guys to realize that being a sensitive is not always like this burden. It's not always this, where people, like, where you're going to go outside and always just be so overwhelmed. You don't have to be that way. The only person that's going to be like that is the untrained, undisciplined, unaware, and without knowledge of who they are, empath. And unfortunately, that's a lot of people. So I see we got a few minutes here, but remember that sensitivity and empathy have passion to it. Like, there's a passion to it. And, sometimes, like a fire, if it's unchecked, yeah, it may burn sometimes. You may get burnt. It may burn other people. Hey, I know I still have a temper that I work through all the time. As much as my passion for my life and what I do and everything fuels me for that, hey, that other side also has that, that opposite side, where if I'm low on my energy and I've overworked myself and I'm just dealing with a lot and I'm just mentally worn down, man, that fire will come up and burn whatever's around there. And that happens, and that's okay. We're not perfect, and we're not meant to be perfect. Remember that life is always like this smooth up and down roller coaster. When you're in balance with stuff, you're meant to have days where you're going to be kind of cranky at times, where you're going to be moody, you're going to be worn out. There's going to be days where you're going to be happy. If you think that being spiritual or conscious is all about being happy and floating and going llama, 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 and you're floating on a cloud everywhere and everyone's, oh, look at you, and bowing down to you, that's not reality. The reality is that no matter who we are in a human body, we're experiencing everything. And we are meant to go up and down because we are meant to be in the rhythm of life, of positive masculine energy and negative feminine energy. And both sides are just as equal and just as important to your growth. So if we're sitting there and we're denying our passion and we're denying who we are because of this idea, well, you're too sensitive, you got to stop crying, you got to stop being this. Well, maybe. But at the same time, maybe it just needs some tweaking. Maybe it needs where you need to, take some time for yourself, like maybe 6 months, a year, a couple years, and really get to know yourself, really get to train yourself in your emotional reactions and how you perceive things, and start really going within. Because one of the things that, we talk about meditation, and this is popping in for some reason, so I don't know if someone's thinking about this or that, but meditation, I always tell people, like, when I meditate in darkness. Like, I go to the ninth dimension, I sit there, and just be, and sometimes I don't even go there. Sometimes I'm just in darkness, and that's where I am, but I'm always internal. And that internalness allows me to analyze and see and just be. And when I come out of it, it allows me to really figure out, oh, boom, this is something that haven't been paying attention to. So meditation, if you don't meditate, start practicing meditation. Start going within. If you need a guided meditation at first, great. I don't recommend them. I don't like guided meditations because when the mind needs to stay clear and the mind needs to stay still. And if you're picturing rainbows and unicorns and waterfalls and you're on this mountain and that cloud and here comes a golden goat and everything, then your mind is always being distracted and you're not really going internal. So I would suggest that to get started on trying to get this idea of, okay, let's get some under control, let's start figuring out who I am and what I'm feeling. Meditation is the way to be. It's going to be very hard. It's going to take several months if you meditate every day, 10, 15 minutes a day, just start out to just get a decent meditation where your mind isn't all over the place. But if you stay persistent in it and train at it, you'll teach your body not to be so emotionally reactive as well. And then you'll be able to start going in one day, or even just doing the dishes or vacuuming. You'll start seeing that you're going inward instead of going outward like you probably have been most of your life, and going inward and figuring out what is in there and what's going on, and you'll be able to see it. And then you'll be just, hey, why am I angry right now? Why do I feel tense? Why do I feel angry right now? Why do I feel stressed out? Well, where's my stress coming out? And then I go in and start to figure that out. And that's going to be a great starter for you guys if you guys are kind of in that spot. So, all right, everybody. I think we're going to stop there because, there's so much and stuff like that. But I didn't even get through half the notes as usual. Caleb's going to beat me up later after the show's off because, he always does he does a fabulous job at these notes, and it takes him a long time. And then I just go on my rants and use them a little bit, but they're always good because, I can always use them for a later show. But I'm going to do a session show this Saturday on this, kind of talk about things that I didn't like energy awareness and the importance of solitude and understand. We're going to do some other things, but this is going to tie into this, so make sure you tune into that. If you guys haven't tuned into our last show, please do. It was about the concept of fulfilling your dreams. We even did a session show on that and why people chase and everything. We're going to try to do a podcast maybe every other week. I know this week we went back to back only because I had the time, but we're going to try to do a podcast every other week, bi-weekly, and at least sessions, we're going to try to do them every weekly. So we're back. We're trying to do what we can. I'm getting healthy again. I'm feeling healthy. I'm feeling like life is reborn in me. I'm still not 100% there. I'm probably about maybe 75%, but it's a lot better than what I was a couple years ago when I thought, I was going down like the Titanic. So, all right, guys, if you want to follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com /I Am Evolution Podcast. Our YouTube is youtube.com/@I Am Evolution. Our TikTok is I Am Evolution 33. Visit our new website, IamEvolution33.com. We don't have a newsletter up there, but if you want to email us with your email and contact information, we'll put you on the newsletter, because we still have a newsletter going up. We just haven't updated everything. I mean, the website, redoing everything, which, Kelly did a great job. I'm so grateful for him and his services and stuff. But we just got a lot of things going up, so we'll update all that. But check it out, guys. It's a beautiful web page. We updated everything to match I Am Evolution. It needed it. SoulandSpiritGuide.com served its purpose, but it's time to move on. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed tonight's show, please share it. The only way we're going to grow and reach other people is by you sharing it and being a community together. So please, we'd appreciate it. And always remember to believe in yourself. It's not our abilities, our talents that make us who we are, but it is our choices. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.